Now on BBC Two, Powerful Ambitions in History File.
Do you not see the sun hurtling through the sky? Do you not see how the stars have fallen? Do you not see that the world is ending? O God, that the sea would cover the land. A lament sung by a Welsh bard in the year 1282. For the nation of Wales was no more. King Edward I of England had marched on Prince Llewellyn of Wales and conquered his lands. But why? What had caused such brutal conflict between the English and the Welsh?
That's not difficult. What caused the conflict? Llewellyn caused the conflict. His pride, his ambition. He drew all Wales behind him, and then, instead of kneeling respectfully before our King Edward, he goaded him, mocked him. Llewellyn broke the peace. Ask anyone.
Ask anyone? Try asking the Welsh. Now look you, who invaded who? Did Llewellyn invade England? I think not. Edward invaded Wales. Couldn't stand how powerful we'd become, wanted to crush us like an ant between his fingers, steal our lands, our dignity. Your King Edward was the cause.
Rivalry between England and Wales was as old as the hills. It didn't start with Edward and Llewellyn. The Welsh chieftains in their mountainous retreats had long been a thorn in the side of their powerful English neighbors. They were forced to call the English kings overlord. But Wales remained a separate country. It had its own laws, its own language. There was tension, misunderstanding.
The very word, Welsh, it's an old English word. It means foreigner, because that's what they are. Well, I mean, they do things differently. They shave all their body hair, except for their moustaches, little droopy things. And they live in tribes. And they're always polishing their teeth with sticks of hazel till they shine like ivory. And they marry their own flesh and blood. It's shocking. Always spawning bastards left, right and centre, playing havoc with the laws of God. They're barbarians. They're not respectable.
This was an English view of the Welsh. But what were they really like? How would the Welsh answer such prejudice?
Well, we don't trade much. There's no shipping or industry. We have no towns or villages. Rather, we live in solitary wattled huts on the edge of forests. But we're happy, living on oats or such stuff as our herd provides, butter, cheese.
Who's talking? Gerald of Wales, a monk who toured the country in the late 12th century. His father was a Norman knight, but his mother was of royal Welsh stock.
The Welsh are wonderfully hospitable. You just walk into someone's home, hand over your weapons, and they'll give you a bowl of water in return to wash your feet. That means you're their guest. Don't expect food to set your mouth watering, but when they play their instruments to accompany the meal, they delight the ear with the sweetness of their music, singing epic songs of the deeds of their grandfathers and great-grandfathers.
This was a Wales unchanged for centuries. And bar a few border raids, it hardly posed a threat to England. So what made Edward invade? The answer? The rise of Llewellyn.
This is a crwth, a sort of fiddle. I play for Llewellyn ap Griffith. He is my prince, I am his bard. I know 350 stories. I am the memory of my people. I could sing of the Prince Poet Owain sheathing his sword and counting his stolen sheep. I could sing of how in Madravail the earth is trampled under the feet of proud horses. But now there is a greater song than any of these, for I will sing of my prince, Llewellyn ap Griffith, and his deeds shall outshine those of his ancestors, and all Wales will rejoice.
Llewellyn ap Griffith had shifted the balance of power between England and Wales. His princedom was Gwynedd in the northwest, but he'd grown in strength. By 1267 he had united all Welsh Wales and much of the borderlands.
It is glorious. Llewellyn has forced England to accept him as the Prince of Wales. The English king remains his overlord, but that is just lip service. What matters, look you, is that one man controls Wales. For we are a nation that loves war, we train, we arm, we deem it an honour to die in battle, a disgrace to die in bed. And yet, being divided between chieftains, we have been weak for so long. But now Llewellyn is the one chieftain, the one prince. We are one nation and strong. We live in great days. The string of both harp and fiddle alike must stay rich and tuneful.
But Llewellyn met his match in Edward I of England. His ambition was simple: to unify all Britain under English rule. Llewellyn and Edward began a slow battle of wits.
Llewellyn to Edward, 11th of July, 1273. I got your letter forbidding me to build a castle on my lands. Strange, because I'm sure you're aware, though you call yourself overlord, I have rights of my own. In my princedom, I can do as I choose.
The Chronicle of the Princes, 1275. King Edward came from London to Chester and demanded Prince Llewellyn kneel before him, but the prince refused, so the king returned enraged to London, and Llewellyn returned to Wales.
King Edward to the Archbishop of Canterbury. Heard the news? Llewellyn plans to marry Eleanor de Montfort. She's daughter to that Simon de Montfort that led the barons in rebellion against my father. Llewellyn's just looking for trouble.
It was the excuse Edward needed. War was declared.
It is agreed. The king shall march against Llewellyn. He is a rebel, he has disturbed the peace, and all those that owe the king military service are summoned to be at Worcester at midsummer next with horses and arms.
All right, in your line! Forward, march!
You should have been there. The market square at Worcester. What a sight! The whole feudal muster. Earls and knights, sergeants and footmen. A babble of tongues. English, French, soldiers brought in from Flanders. The town was packed to groaning. And there were carts lent by the abbeys, laden with barrels of silver pennies for the soldiers' pay. Corn from Ireland, wagons even with picks and axes and crossbow bolts, flags, marvellous. And then the off, and we all march west, and there's dust flying, and we're all laughing, and chaplains are singing psalms. Well, I went, 'cause healing's my trade. Head lice, toothache, wounds gone bad, and war is good for business. Needs be, I'll patch up the whole army. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
The English axemen forced roads through the Welsh forests. Edward's 15,000 foot soldiers moved like whole towns on the march. In two campaigns in 1277 and 1282, the English hemmed in Llewellyn from east and south, leaving him little room to maneuver.
I was at Llewellyn's castle at Dolbadarn. The English came with their engines of war, siege towers to scale the walls, trebuchets hurling stones of 30 pounds weight. We Welsh are famed for the spear and the longbow, but there was no opportunity to stand and fight. The air was thick with smoke, Arrows rained down, their tips laced with Greek fire. You could smell the sulphur that sticks to your clothes and burns. Oh, and I sing of the blood gushing, and our houses reddened, and the red hall flamed, and none but the crows give cheer.
What of Prince Llewellyn? He broke south to find new support, but was caught in a skirmish with English troops.
Sire, know that the stout men whom you placed under my command fought against Llewellyn ap Griffith in the region of Builth Wells on the Friday after the Feast of St. Nicholas, and that Llewellyn ap Griffith is dead, and the best of his army killed.
Although it took 5 more months for the English to put down Welsh resistance, the hopes of Wales lasted really no longer than Llewellyn. His head was placed on a stake and hung on the walls of the Tower of London. For the Welsh, what now? What was to be the consequence of English victory?
The land of Wales has been taken over, united under the crown of England. And I, Edward, have had read out before me the laws of Wales, and having heard them all and understood them fully, I have decided to keep some, to alter some, and some to remove completely.
From the very start, Edward made his intentions clear. He wasn't to be just another chieftain taking control but changing nothing. No. The English planned to transform Welsh law and custom.
Well, their ways were so backward, much worse than English law. In Wales, if you stole something, or killed someone even, you'd only have to pay a fine. Now, what sort of justice is that?
It's Welsh justice, and good justice too. It wasn't just one fine, the whole family paid. Father, brother, cousin, and with your family breathing down your neck, you don't break the law, isn't it? I say it's an honest custom. I tell you what's barbarous. Hanging every petty thief from a gallows tree like you do in England. Now that's barbarous, look you.
The statutes of Wales had cancelled centuries of Welsh custom at a stroke. Their aim was to make the barbarous Welsh behave as the English behaved. The Archbishop of Canterbury urged the king,
We have to convert them. We must force them to live in towns and insist they send their children to England to acquire some manners and a little scholarship.
but worse. The statutes of Wales branded the Welsh as second-class citizens, mere Welshmen.
We cannot use our Welsh language in their courts. No Englishman can be condemned on the oath of a Welshman alone. Our lands are taken from us. We are repaid, of course, with mathematical precision. For every fertile acre stolen, we get 1 dead acre on some godforsaken mountainside where the rain bites and the goat can find no foothold. But I tell you what hurts most. The sight day by day of their castles rising before us. These castles make us slaves, and the whole Welsh nation lies broken before these mocking reminders of English triumph.
Edward's stone fortresses became a symbol of English victory. They were built to make an impression, whitewashed walls emblazoned with the English coat of arms. But they had a practical purpose too. If Edward was to control Wales, he needed to station troops there, and those troops needed protection.
Urgent. Let the constables round up 500 carpenters from the English counties and have them delivered here by Whitsun. Also, 2,000 diggers by the same date.
Sire, this work is very costly and we need a great deal more money, at least £200 a week. The men keep walking off the site because they have nothing to live on.
Building work was hazardous. Carnarvon Castle was burnt and almost destroyed in a Welsh uprising soon after its completion. Edward's response was simple. Plough even more money and men into Wales, build something that no rebel Welsh army dare attack. The result? Beaumaris Castle, the last to be built, the most perfect in its design. It cost Edward 2/3 of his annual royal income, but he'd bought his men safety. They could control the native Welsh, fully confident that any uprising would fail. Their first line of defense, a gatehouse complete with drawbridge, portcullis, murder holes to pour down burning pitch or water to extinguish flames. And if would-be attackers did break through, what then? A second defensive wall higher than the first. These areas between inner and outer walls became known as killing grounds. Only sheer force of numbers could have taken this castle. Casualties would have been massive. Men sacrificed with little chance of success. No one took the risk. In Edward's lifetime, Beaumaris was never attacked. The castle kept an uneasy peace. Weary guards, watching, waiting.
Let 40 men-at-arms be posted on the east wall, of whom 15 must be crossbowmen and 1 an armourer. There shall be a carpenter, a mason, a smith, and let the others serve as watchmen and caretakers and so forth.
I come in the castle, once a week? The garrison needs medicine. I'll sit in the guardroom and dish out ointments for foulness of breath or for the ridding of worms in the hands and legs. Or I'll mix pork grease with smoke of earth for the guards to rub on their feet if they're blistered. Or we just sit and talk. They say there's to be another war against the Scots this time. And that's cause for alarm, because maybe the king will pull troops away from Wales. And, well, you know, Welshmen are Welshmen. We'll have to watch them all the more closely.
English settlers had moved to Wales in their thousands. Under the protection of the garrisons, they built themselves towns and set about growing rich at Welsh expense. The Welsh were forced to bring their goods to English markets, but they couldn't carry weapons there, nor stay after nightfall. The English had hoped that conquest would lead to unity, but was Welsh pride ever truly conquered?
Shall I sing one final song? Of an eagle that lives in the mountains of Snowdonia, and on feast days he perches on a jagged stone and sharpens his beak, waiting to satisfy his hunger on the bodies of dead men. And so sit we, mere Welshmen, sharpening our beaks, waiting. And I tell you this, though our nation now be weakened by our enemy, it'll never be destroyed. And whatever else may come to pass, on the day of judgment, it will be none other than a Welshman, and speaking Welsh, that will give answer to God for this small corner of the earth.